For those on Zoom, if we can ask that you have your camera on, we can find that it helps with the engagement within Zoom. It helps just make sure that everyone's engaged, talking, wanting to be involved. If you have a question on Zoom, we ask that you do keep your microphone muted. Just that way it doesn't reverberate through the entire room. We are happy to see all questions. We want to see a lot of participation. We will call on the Zoom probably before the room just to keep you guys involved. We don't want to feel like it's an outside meeting. So just keep that in there. Keep it in the chat as well as they come up. We're happy to have those. And then the meeting is being recorded. It's going to be sent out at the end. Probably, I'm going to say Thursday of this week, but don't hold me to that again. It's all in my. But we'll record it. We're also going to send out a report. It's like a 13-page report going over everything we talked about at a pretty high level. So keep an eye on your inbox for that. We'll have that for you too as well.
I'll note for our folks in person, if you have questions as we go through, feel free to raise a literal hand instead of the virtual.
Next slide, please.
This is a question.
Can we get to the next slide? Yeah. Awesome. And then for the agenda today, we're doing it right now. We have the welcome and introduction section. We will then move into our guest speaker. We also have a labor market and trend analysis. That's going to be from Ebony Benzing. It will be a video. So that will be fun. We're going to open it up to a group discussion after the video just to see how it's landing in the room, how everyone's feeling about the labor market data. I know that's really interesting to get that hyper-specific labor market data. We'll also have the panel discussion that will be by Caitlin with a lot of our panelists, Bud, Rivian, just to name a few. Some closing remarks and conclusions, and then the highlight of the hour, we have a Rivian experience out in the welding parking lot. You guys get to explore the vehicles and all the good stuff. From there, I think we're having a little bit of a Zoom snafu since we're still going through the agenda, so I'm going to pause for a second to just.
I think we believe you, but thanks everyone for your patience.
Want to make sure. Awesome. Alrighty. Well, then we have all of our sponsors. So I want to take a quick moment to thank all of our sponsors: the Los Rios Community Colleges, California Community Colleges, COE, SETA, North Farm North Community Colleges, Lake Tahoe Community College, Woodland College. We also have North Farm North, County College District, Golden Sierra. Quite a few, and then some that aren't up there, but we do want to thank. We can go to the next slide. We want to thank our planning team, helping make this day possible. We have Julie Mayer, who is actually on Zoom, helping us out over there, so you'll see her in the chat, helping and doing all the good things. We also have April, she's in the back of the room. She's been super involved in all the planning, and we also have Amy Schultz, the Dean, Executive Dean of Workforce and Strategic Development from Sierra College. We loved working with Sierra College and having you guys host us the entire time. It's been a pleasure to work with Nancy and everyone from your office. So to introduce Dr. Amy Schultz, she is the director dedicated to strategic workforce planning and implementing development programs that meet the region's needs. Previously, Dr. Schultz was the Dean of Career Continuing and Technical Education at Sierra College, overseeing diverse programs such as business, cybersecurity, and public safety. Before that, she served as the Director of Technical Education for Feather River College and as the Vice President and member of Membership and Education for the National Association of Community College Entrepreneurship. Dr. Schultz holds a PhD in Organizational Systems from Saybrook University and an MBA from the University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley, and a BA in Economics in University from California. So with that, here is Dr. Amy Schultz.
We're going to do a little test to see if this works for our Zoom folks. Does that help? Well, thank you all for joining us today for this exciting conversation. First of all, I want to thank Valley Vision for your leadership and and support in workforce development in the region. This is something that at Sierra College we've had a curiosity around for quite some time, as far as these emerging electrical careers and what are the skills that are needed. And so Valley Vision offered to make this one of their advisories for the year, and so we're really happy to see what we found, and also we're thrilled to host. So it's always a pleasure. And thank you to Rivian. I am really excited about the tour afterwards to go and see go see this in action. And just also for our faculty, and we actually have some students here today as well. Thank you for your dedication. So we have Roy Ingram from Mechatronics, Jesus De La Torre from Welding and Automotive. Um, and Louis Garcia, who's actually teaching an electrical class right now, he wasn't able to come, but those three faculty have really been driving this conversation, like this interdisciplinary component of these skills. So it's in automotive, it's also in building industries, it's in manufacturing. It really crosses. So if we can drill down to what those skills are, we'll be positioned for as fields emerge, and folks will have the skills to be able to get high income careers. So thanks for joining us today, and we're excited for the program.
Folks to use these microphones for any guest speakers here today. Thank you.
So sorry to the people on Zoom. It never seems to be easy, no matter if we arrive 2 hours early or not. Alrighty, with that, it is my pleasure to introduce Larry Riviera. He is the staff air pollution specialist with California Air Resources Board. Larry leads a team of community equity outreach and engagement, heavy-duty zero-emissions transportation initiatives, and partnership activities. He serves as the interagencies team, public-private partnership ventures, and engages with communities, California tribes, and businesses to help decarbonize the transportation sector while communities accrue direct benefits of the investments. Larry was the architect of several initiatives, state financing solutions for solar panel manufacturers, electric vehicle charging stations, and ZEV manufacturing. Larry also brings knowledge and experience with labor and workforce in the clean energy and transportation space. Larry received a Bachelor of Science in Plant Science from the University of California, Davis, and a Master's in Public Policy from the University of Southern California. With that, we would love to welcome Larry to the floor. Thank you so much, Larry.
Good afternoon, everybody. I need to shorten my bio. Very excited to be here. I have spent a lot of time at community colleges. I attended about 6 of them. I've taught at 3 of them, and I've had contracts and partnerships with 31 of them. So I'm very pleased to be here to talk about high voltage, but within the transportation sector. So to kind of cap it, because you'll hear later, and really high voltage, I'm only looking at greater than 50 volts and less than 800, 900 volts, just kind of keep it in that automotive space. Success. So a little bit about the California Air Resources Board. The board is responsible for protecting the public from air pollution and climate change. It develops programs. It has the authority to regulate motor vehicles and other consumer products. It works directly with communities. One of the areas I spend a lot of time is in the border region, a lot of low-income, disadvantaged, and with tribes throughout California, not just on transportation solutions, microgrids, and other energy. There are 35 air pollution control districts within California, so depending on where you live, you'll have some interface or be within the jurisdiction of one of those air districts that provides programs, provides the incentives, either for you, your network, but it's at the community level. in which those air districts sort of engage. One of the great graphics that was used at our board meeting 2 months ago is this depiction of the 8-hour ozone. This is a standard that has been set by the feds, and the drivers of some of the technologies you'll hear about today, including Rivian. And I'm going to take a little bit of a long story route to this, but the picture on the left is the standard in 1993. And then because of the regulations, because of the technologies, because of the partnerships, because of community understanding of what air pollution, climate, and these multiple intersections, we have on the right much cleaner and improved air. Why is that? It's important. It's important because not all of us have the same ability to breathe air. California is an innovation state and home to investments and local economic activity in the transportation electrification segment. There are many companies with emerging ideas and technologies across myriad industries, including clean energy and clean transportation. Significant capital has been invested in zero-emission vehicle and zero-emission vehicle infrastructure markets, including the development of skills across a wide range and array of occupations. Years ago, it was thought that Silicon Valley was in the Bay Area, and now we have Silicon Valleys all over the world. In shifting to California's ZEV policy, the state has an overarching ZEV market development strategy. The current strategy is the fourth iteration of the state, and I've had the privilege of leading teams in the development of the strategies for the last couple of governors. This strategy provides guidance to state agencies, industries, OEMs, communities, and national and global stakeholders. The strategy is premised on the collaborative interrelationship of initiatives that weave together transportation electrification technologies with community beneficiaries. The strategy is constructed on 4 pillars of vehicles, infrastructure, end users, and workforce. It is this last element of workforce that binds our world today in this high voltage transportation and career pathways discussion. The workforce element is also very broadly inclusive, as noted in the short definition to the right. An important segment of California's economy is electric transportation manufacturing. Electric transportation is the #1 export in the state. California is home to over 60 ZEV-related manufacturers of vehicles, infrastructure, hardware, software, and services. So what does demand for these zero-emission technologies look like? What do zero-emission markets see? On the left, we have a dashboard for Veloz, a unique public-private partnership, or P3, that advances 100% zero-emission vehicles. The orange curve represents, on the left, the orange curve represents national sales of light-duty EVs through third quarter of 2024. The green line represents California sales. 26% of the sales in the state are for EVs. This is light-duty electric vehicles. On the right, we have the same quantification of electric vehicle chargers needed for the light-duty vehicle electric vehicles in the state by 2030 and 2035. The numbers are across charging locations, including multifamily housing, work, publicly accessible charging, and DC fast charging. That was the light-duty vehicle sector. And now we're going to switch a little bit to the heavy-duty sector, the commercial fleets, the public fleets, whether it's transit, school buses, or whether it's port freight applications. California is home to the earliest heavy-duty zero-emission regulation in the country, the innovative clean transit rule. In shifting from light-duty EVs, we also see increased sales and adoption of heavy-duty zero-emission deployments across the state. I would note that the transit sector has both battery electric buses, noted in the dark pink, but also growth in fuel cell electric buses as well. One of the great advances in this state is electric school bus training. And this is a priority and has been a priority of the state for many, many decades, actually, starting way back with methanol in the 1980s, I hear. I know some folks that were around that I work with who were part of this alternative fuel program for schools to move into this space where I showed it, brown is now green, that transition in the ozone, if you will. California schools receive funding from the California Energy Commission, the California Air Resources Board, and from the Federal Environmental Protection Agency to electrify their school bus fleets. A very popular resource in this space is the electric school bus training program, collaboratively developed between state agencies and Cerritos College in Southern California. These numbers are old, by the way. This was an initial $1 million investment, and these numbers have tripled in a very short period of time. The need is there. You can come in, Jessica. Essentially, across the board, the demand for zero-emission vehicles is increasing in California. Last year, CARB identified over 260 heavy-duty zero-emission vehicles certified for sale in California. The list, which can be found on our ZEV truck stop and our HVIP, our heavy-duty voucher incentive project. So where is high-voltage training in the transportation sector? I mean, so what is the status of high-voltage training in the transportation sector? I want to draw your attention to the Alameda Contra Costa Transit District, or AC Transit, in the Bay Area. They are now employing the latest in mixed reality or virtual augmented reality training. The ZEV zero-emission bus technician on the right is using this technology to learn how to service high-voltage battery electric equipment. Two years ago, AC Transit won a grant from the Federal Transit Administration, $16 million of which is for facility modernization and $2.5 million for workforce training and development. However, while funding for training is important, I actually want to highlight something that is even more alarming, concerning, yellow flag. Can you see it? The top three pictures are the current configuration of service bays and facilities at AC Transit. Service bays are antiquated. Traditional training does not support zero-emission technology needs, and the training facilities are outdated and lack capacity. That's the top row of photographs. In the bottom pictures, you see renderings of AC Transit's zero-emission bus university, a service bay needed for fuel cell electric or hydrogen fuel cell buses, and how immersive training is being conducted today. In 2018, I was very fortunate to be in a very small meeting of the general manager and the director of workforce training and development, where they spoke about this, quote, concept. Years later, of course, it materialized in a $40 million grant. I'm going to shift a little bit and talk a little bit about the career technical education, CTE. A lot of you have familiarity with this. And I'm going to weave together a couple of stories here and talking about experience with CTE in California. So how is California's CTE for Automotive program going? Sorry for the questions. According to the Association for Career Technical Education, 30% of California jobs will require education beyond high school, but less than a bachelor's degree in less than 5 years. The ACTE also notes that zero-emission vehicles will be a key California industry. I will now paint a picture of high-voltage automotive canvas with the story of several schools moving the needle on ZEV education, awareness, and career pathways. As a critical text to this narrative is a focus on equity. California for All is not a platitude, but a priority to bring all communities to the forefront of economic sustainability, as well as becoming beneficiaries of environmental and public health investments. When I started my zero emission workforce journey, I was told that investments in college workforce training and development for ZEVs is where I should put public dollars. So we did that. Then I went to the colleges and I was told that I needed to go to the high school automotive programs and invest there. So we did that. Then I went to the high schools and I was told that I needed to go to the middle schools. So I said, what? Yeah, I shouldn't have let them look at my wallet. Meet Mark Jinderick. He's a teacher at Mulholland Middle School in the Los Angeles Unified School District. He told me about his partnership with Toyota and their Hydrogen Grand Prix project, which is a global project, by the way. It's not just something here in California, it's global. 8th grade students design build fuel cell vehicles for competition. Calexico High School is less than 1 mile from the border. A reported 6% of the students are unhoused, and 99% are Latinas. Enter Keith Fisher, an old surfer from Oahu, Hawaii, that moved to California a few years ago and had a history of tinkering with cars, but his day job was teaching history. A $55,000 grant from the California Energy Commission started their ZEV high school automotive program. Using the Switch Lab kit and curriculum, Keith and the Calexico High School program never looked back after this initial investment. The picture on the right might look familiar to some of you. Yes, it is a VW Volkswagen Bug. 2 summers ago, one of the students approached Keith and asked if they could strip out this Bug and electrify it. They did, and it was successful. Is that the full story? No. Last summer, I met the student who led this charge that proposed the project and spent his summer taking out the guts and putting in the new electric propulsion and traction technology. He was 14, and he doesn't have a license and can't drive. Entrepreneurship at 14, Calexico style. We now move on to the high voltage career pathway from middle to high school and onto Fresno City College. Fresno City College Automotive received funding to establish a dual enrollment program. 3 regional high schools in the heart of the Central Valley are partners, as are local dealers and others as well, parts suppliers, equipment suppliers as well. Fresno City College is also a host for General Motors Automotive Service Educational Program, one of 5 colleges on the west coast of the US and Alaska. And if you want to see a state-of-the-art facility, this is it. It's phenomenal. Last year, I read an article that compared the high school and community college automotive curriculum. I'll slowly orient you to this here, so you don't try to figure out or let me know that it's upside down. Larry Engelbrecht, an employability researcher and educational consultant in San Diego, and an advisory committee member for the California Energy Commission's Clean Transportation Program, published this insight. To orient you, MLR stands for Maintenance and Light Repair Tasks. MAST, stands for Master Automobile Service Technology. There are a total of 394 tasks for community college mass programs. Larry's point was to illustrate the duplication of instruction between high school MLR and community college math programs in red. This is established by the ASE, Automotive Service Excellence Guidelines and Standards, that both of them have to endure. The short line bottom story is high school students who go through a ZEV automotive experience duplication to those percentages in the first year of college. In addition to CARB's work on ZEVs, the state has also published reports on ZEV infrastructure. And ZEV infrastructure, I'm referring to charging and hydrogen refueling stations. The report on the left, prepared as part of a P3 public-private partnership, relies on survey and quantification methodology to better understand the requisite labor and occupations needed for charger installation, maintenance, and service. The report in the center is an annual report prepared by CARB on fuel cell deployment and hydrogen network development for light-duty vehicles. To the right, we have seen emergence of community-based training efforts for EV chargers, such as the one at the California Mobility Center. I would be remiss if I did not include the apprenticeship earn and learn pathway of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, or IBW. From power generation, transmission, and distribution to solar panels and EV chargers, apprenticed electricians are a vital workforce and pathway to good jobs. In 2020, 5 years ago, AB 841 passed that required electric vehicle infrastructure training program, or EVITP, certified electricians to install EV chargers. This program became the benchmark for federal investments in the previous administration. CARB commissioned a research project late last year with the Foundation for California Community Colleges. The study is a workforce assessment of ZEV training programs in California community colleges and will be completed next year. Flag, flag, flag. In addition to the California Mobility Center's EVSE reliability training program, Sacramento is also home to another community-based training effort by Green Tech Education Employment Organization. EV charging training introduces youth and young adults ages 16 to 23 to prepare individuals for careers in the fast-growing field of electric vehicles and electric vehicle charging. Ever heard of them? Any hands? Yes. Thank you. Lastly, high voltage automotive pathways and careers are about committed people, committed instructors, and lifelong students of learning. The ZEV industry is built on peer-to-peer exchanges, growth, and awareness building. And that concludes. Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Larry. With that, we would love to open it up for conversation. If anyone has any questions.
Yes.
Larry, for other schools that may be needing these type of resources, how would they can get involved or be connected to maybe get funded in their school?
Yeah, that's a good point. How do you stay connected? For the most part, funding has been available through government, through the public agencies. And you have to have an understanding of government and public sector and the layers of government where you can go for resources, depending on what your needs are. If they're about grants in the transportation sector, you'll have a handful of agencies you will go to. One of them I had mentioned at the beginning is the Air District. They can direct you there. And that's for a myriad of incentives that you might be interested. What has happened over the last a few years in particular, one of the big projects I worked on with a tribal project, there are 42 tribes in California, was the role of philanthropic dollars. Despite what's kind of going on and the federal narrative, there's still quite a bit of philanthropic dollars that are available that are not government and a lot more easier to access. Sure.
I see we have a question from Zoom chat from John Hellman, which I believe, John, you unmute to play over our speakers here in the room.
Can you hear me okay?
Perfect.
Cool. So I'm coming from the high school space, and you mentioned CTE programs. I'm curious, because as a high school administrator, you got to think like this. Do these programs fall for electric vehicles fall within transportation, automotive, or are they electrical as far as curriculum is concerned?
Yeah, thank you for that. The question is really good. I think I'm going to respond in a way that will give you an indication of what's happening today with respect to these separate programs, silos, and the attention we've given to the electric vehicle space, but really how we're dealing with climate jobs and training. And that is, while you might have the education for an EV in an automotive program, we've seen the porosity, the porousness between looking at environmental literacy, the science and the STEAM programs as well. I talk quite a bit about that, and some of the investments at the high schools that do have those partnerships there. They also have them at the college level as well. LA Pierce College years ago was the one who kind of received some funding to look at this cross sort of pollination between the disciplines. And when you go for a job, they're going to ask those environmental questions. They're going to ask some financial literacy questions, and so it's behest to you as the instructor and certainly as a student to become versed in these disciplines.
If I could follow up, if that's possible.
Sure.
So I'm speaking. This is a bit of a bean counter question. You know, as a CT administrator who wants to get a program started, and maybe I'm from a curricular standpoint. There are 15 different industry sectors within CTE. Would you say that this is one that's best taught within transportation, within building trades and construction, within energy, environment, utilities? Because that's going to impact a lot of the person who we hire and the credential that we ask them to have when they teach this curriculum.
Our parachutes don't have one color anymore. We have multiple colors now, and we develop our own personal skill sets that go out and branch out into these other areas. I did have a slide up here that showed the depiction between old technology facilities for AC transit and where it's going and where it's headed. So just like the programs we set up for instruction at the colleges, at the high school levels, we also need to look at the future, how we support that and move that. Now, we're not going to be able to fund our way into solution. So we have to create the partnerships and work with industry like we have today with Rivian here and how we kind of move forward because they're the ones that are building the technologies for our environment, certainly for our economics as well. But this, if you haven't already, is look at those colleges, if you will, in the state that have already had these conversations or a benchmark. I was invited to speak at the Foundation for Community Colleges, had an event last year, and there was a college from Nebraska in the middle of the Corn Belt that spoke and was innovative. The dean was amazing over there, but so it's all over the place. Don't just look to California, look to these little pockets of both national and global markets to get your inspiration.
Thank you.
Question.
Oh.
I grew up in a Bay Area, and so to have AC transit make that change is very huge, but also oh no, it's okay. Hello. Okay, so as a person that grew up in the Bay Area, went to high school and everything out there, we lost a lot of our auto tech classes in school. And so with the zero emissions and EV, how do you bring that view back into the schools so students that are in high school can get that training and go into the workforce for EV or zero emissions?
Love that question. And I want to focus the response a little bit on the Bay Area and a couple of things that are happening there, but I also want to focus a little bit on Calexico. CARB last year was looking at new strategies and engagement to gin up excitement about electric vehicles. And we heard from experts all over the map with the marketing and development skills and this is and that's and strategies. And we were at a meeting with leadership, governor's office and others. And some of the students at Calexico High School actually talked about how EVs were fun. And we forgot the primary experience for these students and for the instructors as well about the impact of driving one of these things. It didn't matter whether it was a heavy duty transit bus or whether it was that Volkswagen. You know, the experience of driving was really, really fun. So we got to bring that back. Back to the Bay Area. One of the things that we've seen is this trend for adult education. AC Transit couldn't find enough workers to go into. They have an attrition issue, they have an age issue, they have a bunch of other things, not just the facilities, but the workforce itself. They looked in their backyard. They looked at Eden ROP. They were able to combine a queue for the workforce that they were going to skill up to become service technicians and everything else associated with zero emission technology with equity, their own backyard. So I think this is a formula that we'll see certainly in the school maintenance section. We'll see it also in the transit section, but the revitalization in the Bay Area where technology and money and capital invests is just prime fertile soil. Good question. Thank you.
Awesome. And now I've remembered that I have a mic. So now I am free to go wherever I want. This is amazing. If you want to hit the next slide for me. Thank you so much, Larry. We loved having you. This was amazing. And I loved specifically when you called out making it fun for students. I think there's a lot. There are always so many questions about how to get K-16 involved. And maybe if we make it a little bit fun for some teenagers, they might be a little bit more interested. Alrighty. So next we have our labor market assessment. This is going to be done by Ebony Joy Benzing. I'm a big fan of Ebony. She is amazing. Unfortunately, she's not able to make it today. She had a conflict with her schedule. So we are going to have her over video. That is not to say that if you have any questions, we can't take them back to her. We would love to connect you directly with Ebony to ask those questions. And so any that we can't answer for you, we will take back. Any that the room, because we do have quite a few experts in employment and other things, we might be able to have a nice little conversation in the room and we'll open it up for all of us to react. With that, we can move on to our video.
Okay. Good morning, or actually good afternoon. My name is Ebony Joy Benzing, and I am the director of the North or Greater Sacramento Center of Excellence for Labor Market Research. I'm joining you virtually through this pre-recorded video because while you all are attending the high voltage electrical advisory meeting, I will actually be on vacation. So since I'm not there in person, should any questions arise about the data in my presentation, please feel free to either share those questions with Valley Vision and they'll get them to me, or you can send me an email. My email address will be provided at the end of this presentation. So anyways, like I said before, I'm joining you to provide an overview of the labor market need for high voltage jobs in Greater Sacramento. Just a little bit of housekeeping. Please excuse any sniffles you hear. I'm getting over a cold, and for the rest of this presentation, I'm actually just going to minimize my video. So here we go. So before we get into the data about high voltage jobs, I do want to share a little bit about the Centers of Excellence. So there are 8 regional Centers of Excellence and 1 statewide center. And our mission is to support the development of career education programs in California community colleges by providing high-quality labor market analyses. We use data from industries, businesses, and occupations to answer questions like, what is the job outlook for students? Which jobs provide access to living wages? What skills are most in demand in our region? And where are there opportunities for colleges to support our communities in career and economic mobility? Our work typically supports investments into developing new and relevant career education programs, aligning existing programs to regional needs, and is often used for grant applications. So for today's presentation, I'm going to cover the following topics. I'll start with a definition of high voltage, and then I'll move into how high voltage jobs present in labor market data via an analysis of job postings. We'll take a look at existing post-secondary programs that are relevant to high voltage training in our region. And then I'll close with a discussion of some key takeaways and recommendations. So, like I said, first thing I like to start with is a definition, because this is what usually grounds my research. I need to have an understanding of what I'm looking for to be able to find it. So, to define high voltage, I relied on several definitions from a few different resources, including the California Code and Regulations, Cal OSHA, Federal OSHA, and the National Fire Protection Association, which is also abbreviated to mean NFPA. All of these organizations establish standards and safety practices for electrical work. In California, high voltage is considered a voltage of more than 600 volts, or a system of conductors and equipment operating at, or intended to be operated at, a sustained voltage of 600 volts or more. Related licenses and statuses include the C10 electrical contractor license and the title qualified electrical worker, which I abbreviate as QEW here. We'll go into qualified electrical worker on the next slide. So qualified electrical worker is a status that is called out in the California Code and Regulations Handbook and in the OSHA standards. And it describes an individual who has demonstrated the requisite knowledge, skills, and safety practices to perform specific electrical tasks. It's really important to note that the title qualified electrical worker refers to any worker performing any type of electrical work, including low voltage and high voltage work. According to standards, qualified electrical worker is a status that is conferred by employers to their employees who've demonstrated these requirements. Now, we're going to take a look at job postings related to high voltage jobs in the region. One thing I'd like to point out is that I usually conduct a job postings analysis after looking at traditional labor market data, which involves understanding which occupations would be the targets of any community college training program. The thing is, about 80 to 90% of the time, I usually have a clear sense of which occupations would kind of align to these areas. But in this case, high voltage isn't really an occupation, nor is it a job title. It's actually a skill. So when we're starting to look at skills, where our goal is to understand how prevalent that skill is in our job market by understanding which jobs or job titles require the skill. And then we look to see how those jobs align to occupations. The occupation piece is really important because that is how we measure demand. Demand comes from traditional labor market data. So let's go ahead and get into this. So since high voltage is a skill rather than a specific job title, I conducted a series of keyword and skill searches using terms from the state and national standards to identify a subset of job postings closely related to high voltage. There is a list in the appendix to see which keywords I used for these searches and the results that were generated by those searches. I ultimately decided to provide an analysis of the search that used high voltage as a skill, as it yielded the most relevant job postings. Others, like the phrase qualified person, were too general to reveal relevant job postings. So out of the nearly 250,000 job postings over the last 12 months, there were 416 that mentioned or required high voltage as a skill. Now, the other part of the analysis that I did was I sorted those 416 job postings based off of the required minimum level of education that was desired by local employers. The thing is that not all job postings will mention a minimum level of education. That's why you're seeing two numbers here that don't exactly add up to 416. So for the first group, the sub-baccalaureate group, I looked at job postings that required either a high school diploma or an associate degree. There were 131 sub-baccalaureate job postings based off of that criteria. The 108 bachelor's degree job postings, those were job postings that required a minimum of a bachelor's degree. Now, you'll notice that there's a plus next to that because, again, I'm using a minimum of a bachelor's degree. That means that other levels of education could have been included in those job postings, but they were established as having a preference for a minimum level of bachelor's degree. So here we have a chart that shows the 5-year trend of high voltage job postings between April 2020 and March 2025. The solid purple line represents all of the high voltage job postings, while the blue and green dotted lines represent the sub-baccalaureate and the bachelor degree postings. The orange box on the right-hand side covers the last 12 months of postings. That's where the 416 job postings come from. So over the last 5 years, the number of postings per month typically range somewhere between 20 and 80, with one exception, a spike of 111 postings in the fall of 2023. This spike could be due to a number of reasons, including a return to regular job posting activity following the COVID-19 pandemic. But since that spike, posting activity has returned to normal levels for high voltage job postings. Overall, there's not too much divergence between the job postings trends for sub-baccalaureate and bachelor degree high voltage job postings. There were some separations early on in the pandemic and towards the end of the pandemic, but these were likely due to the types of jobs like remote versus on location and a return to pre-pandemic hiring practices. Closer examination is needed to fully understand what happened in those areas of separation. This chart shows the industry sectors with the most job postings for high voltage jobs over the last 12 months. I've also included counts for sub-baccalaureate and bachelor degree job postings where possible. You'll notice that when you're looking at the purple lines on the chart, that more than half of the job postings came from 5 sectors: the professional, scientific, and technical services sector, manufacturing, utilities, construction, and public administration. The sub-baccalaureate postings mostly came from the professional, scientific, technical services sector, as well as manufacturing and utilities, while those postings requiring a minimal level of a bachelor's degree came from, again, the professional, scientific and technical services sector, manufacturing, utilities, and public administration. Now, the next 3 slides, we're going to take a look at the employers, the job titles, and the most aligned occupations. So first up, we have a table that provides a list of the top 10 employers with the most high voltage job postings. I've also included 2 separate lists on the right-hand side for employers at the sub-baccalaureate and the bachelor degree level. High voltage job postings are predominantly concentrated in utilities and the professional, scientific, and technical services firms, including SMUD, California ISO, PG&E, Sargent & Lundy, and TELUS Solutions. This table shows the job titles with the most high voltage job postings. On this list, the most prevalent job titles include electrician, technician, and engineering. Now, it's important to note that while these jobs all include high voltage as a skill, they do not all utilize the high voltage skill to the same extent, meaning they are not all performing the same high voltage tasks. The high voltage tasks that electricians perform would be different than the high voltage tasks that technicians and engineers perform. So it's really important to understand the level at which these workers are performing high voltage tasks. With that in mind, let's go ahead and take a look at the occupations. Now, occupations are really important to my work because it's how we, the Centers of Excellence, measure demand. In order for us to measure demand and compare that to supply, which is the number of awards that are coming out of our post-secondary institutions, we have to know the occupations. Occupations are essentially buckets of jobs that perform the same type of work, require similar levels of education, and so on. Now, to get to the occupations from job titles, like CAS matches job titles to occupations using a combination of machine learning and rules that they've created with their taxonomy teams. The goal is to find a best match. So, based on the Lightcast algorithm, these are the most closely aligned occupations with high voltage jobs. You'll notice that the list includes a mix of engineering, construction, trade, and installation, maintenance, and repair roles. I also want to highlight that I really did filter this list to focus on occupations that felt more relevant to what I would expect to see in high voltage, meaning I really removed anything that seemed to be not closely aligned to what I would expect to see for high voltage. For instance, I saw an occupation related to shipping and receiving clerks. That occupation felt mismatched to what we were looking at here, so I took it out. Additional work is really needed in this space to further refine the best aligned occupations. Now, we're taking a look at the most desired skills. These are skills that were closely aligned to high voltage, and it's broken down into the sub-baccalaureate and the bachelor degree level. So we've got 3 categories of skills: specialized, which are really specific to the types of tasks performed by a particular job, performed in a particular job. Then we have common skills, which can also be referred to as soft skills or employability skills. Common skills tend to transverse industry sectors. They're not really just specific to one sector or another. We'll see them in multiple sectors. And then we have software skills. These are the technical skill sets that workers performing these jobs might be expected to be able to use, basically. The skills associated with the sub-baccalaureate jobs tend to emphasize hands-on work, while the bachelor skill sets highlighted product design related skills, including project management, engineering, and physics. This chart shows the level of education and experience preferred by local employers who were looking for job candidates with high voltage skill sets. Again, I've provided an overall, which is the purple bar, and then a breakdown for the sub-baccalaureate and the bachelor degree job postings. Overall, the preferred education split is really split between a high school diploma and a bachelor's degree, while the preferred level of experience runs from 2 to 6 years. So I wanted to close up the job postings by providing kind of like some key takeaways that are listed here. So the industries that really stand out overall for high voltage job postings are 4 sectors: the professional, scientific, and technical services sector, manufacturing, utilities, and construction. One really huge challenge that I'm noticing is being able to identify sub-baccalaureate occupations beyond electrician, electrical line workers. Specific to the sub-baccalaureate job postings, key occupations included maintenance and repair workers, electricians, and electrical power line installers and repairers. Two of those occupations require an apprenticeship, and the desired skill suggests that these roles, high voltage roles, are primarily technical and hands-on. Now, comparing that to the bachelor's degree, key occupations related to bachelor degree high voltage job postings were engineering roles, honestly. And most of the skills, when I was looking at those, they tended to suggest that those jobs were design focused and really project centered. So last part of the presentation, we're going to take a look at existing pathways related to high voltage jobs in our region. So during an earlier review of job postings, I commented that not all high voltage jobs perform the same high voltage task. If that's the case, then it follows that training would also vary. I conducted an online search just to see kind of, hey, what high voltage training exists in our region. And while I didn't find too many things that were pointing to institutions in our region, I did notice that there were a lot of third-party administrators of high voltage training online. And these individuals or these organizations would come either to workplaces or provide online training related to high voltage. So here are two examples of high voltage courses that I found online that seem to be really common across these third-party administrators. The first example is a high voltage qualified course, which is focused on two key standards, the National Fire Protection Association 70E standard and the Federal OSHA 1910.269 standard. The requirement for that course was typically a low voltage qualified training course. Now, the second course is a little bit different, and it is focused on switching related to high voltage systems. And it was designed for electrical workers involved in the operation and maintenance of high voltage systems. So again, the first course was really centered around understanding the standards and safe practices, whereas the second course is designed for individuals who are actually performing some type of work on a high voltage system. Both of those courses might be required by an employer to be able to demonstrate that someone is a qualified electrical worker. However, the second course may not be needed by every worker because it depends on the types of tasks that they're doing related to high voltage. Now, I also took a look at local post-secondary training providers, including community colleges and any kind of private organizations in our region that might be offering training related to high voltage. I was able to identify 3 program areas based on the California Community Colleges Chancellor's Office taxonomy of program descriptions. And these 3 program areas seem to align with high voltage skill sets that were identified in the job postings. For each category, I provided a list of the community colleges and other post-secondary training entities that provide courses or coursework related to these areas. And I also have included a high-level measurement of the number of wards that came out of the community colleges across these 3 areas. So in the last 3 years, community colleges, including American River, Sacramento City, and Sierra, have conferred an average of 121 awards in these 3 program areas that are closely related to high voltage training. So I'm going to wrap up my presentation by talking about some takeaways and recommendations from this research. So first up, I want to say that high voltage work is really centered around a specific skill set, and it's centered around certain jobs in utilities, construction, and manufacturing. and the professional, scientific, and technical services sector. The relatively stable job posting activity suggests a consistent level of demand for these jobs. However, high voltage tasks vary by industry sector and job. I have a really great example here. Electricians and power line installers work on energized high voltage systems and require detailed knowledge and safety practices about high voltage, while other jobs may not require that same level of knowledge. My partner works in the field of providing kind of risk management to governmental and other public agencies. And this is an area that he's quite knowledgeable in, and he was highlighting some differences for me. So for instance, you might have a worker that is simply performing other work tasks around high voltage equipment, but they're not really interacting with that equipment. You might have another worker who, when they're designated as a qualified electrical worker, all they're doing is going into a high voltage environment and operating a switch, and that's it. So it's really important to be able to differentiate between those different types of high voltage tasks. The third point that I want to highlight is really additional research is needed to, one, better understand the differences in employer training needs. So again, what level of high voltage training is needed? Two, to identify occupations that best align with sub-baccalaureate jobs. I think I got 3 key occupations through my analysis, but I am wondering if there are other occupations that would be a good fit for high voltage jobs. And I really want to be able to figure that out so that I can provide an accurate assessment of demand related to high voltage jobs in our region. And again, third point, again, I just said it, is to appropriately measure labor market demand in our region. So to close, I have 2 recommendations. We should be conducting a complete labor market assessment of high voltage jobs across the region. And as part of that assessment, we should look at conducting an employer survey of their needs related to high voltage training. So thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Thank you for taking the time to listen to me today. Here is my contact information if you have any questions and you want to reach out directly to me. I've also provided a link to a report about electrical technology. This report came out in November of 2022, but it has a really great overview of existing training options in our region. So that's all I have for you today. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Ebony, even though you're not here, always a fangirl of Ebony, as I mentioned. Some of the things that I noticed while I was taking notes in the back, I loved that we were able to get Rivian and Smud onto the employer panel today, since they were called out as some of the top high voltage employers in the region. I also noticed that in the education, she seemed to list quite a few for-profit schools in our region as educational resources, but we do have some trade schools that aren't necessarily focusing on that profit, like the Sacramento Electrical Training Center. Chris is right in front of me. So that is something to keep in mind. This is a limited scope. This isn't a full scope of the entire labor market research. She's one lady. She's an amazing lady, though. And then in the chat, we also had somebody mention that it would be maybe beneficial for Ebony to also look at the age range of people retiring to see that, capture that silver tsunami that might be happening within the trades organizations. Those are all things that I thought were really interesting and definitely something I want to bring back to Ebony. Were there any thoughts in the room or on the Zoom chat? We would welcome them now. Awesome. Yeah, let me run the mic over to you.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Jesus Del Torre. I'm a welding and auto department chair for Sierra College. I know one topic that comes up not only here on campus between our mechatronics instructor and myself and construction instructor, but also in talking with the auto dealerships. And yes, I'm glad Rivian's here and Smud, because the one topic, one of the major topics that comes up is the lack of serviceability technicians for the charging stations. Every dealership that I have talked to that takes part in our advisories. They share technicians that service all the EVs. So one EV tech for 3 different dealerships. So you have to schedule, the service work that you need done on your vehicle. So that is probably number one. And number two is the students, not only in our dual enrollment programs, but also in our introductory and our advanced courses that are interested in EV is where do they get started? So I think, there wasn't much information up there like transportation and auto. I think those are huge here in our industry, but I don't think they haven't been represented in the research. So in order for our programs to grow, we need that information. What comes first, the chicken or the egg? So maybe it's another meeting that we potentially could have with Ebony, but yeah, and it's not only here, but I have worked at Yuba College as well, and it's kind of the same thing.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Any other thoughts, any other reactions in the room? Also in chat. I'm looking at the chat Zoom, so don't think that I'm not seeing you. You cannot go ahead and answer. Awesome. Well, with that, we can stick on time and I can hand this over to Caitlin to lead our industry panel discussion. Thanks, Caitlin.
Thank you, Liz, and to Ebony. I want to take a second to invite our panelists up behind the podium here. And maybe for everyone else in the room, take a second to stand up. Your spine health is very important. And I know we've been talking at you for a little over an hour and a half now. So please take a second to stand up. Folks on Zoom as well, if you're sitting at home, and we'll get started in just a moment. Agenda and questions for everyone, but someone just got snagged perhaps. And those waters are also for you.
Oh, perfect.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Cool. Yeah, got me moving around, all the things. Yeah, you gotta give the energy.
Alrighty, I'll give folks 1 more minute to grab a snack. If you're at home, get your final stretches in. And ask folks to find their seats. I'm channeling my inner elementary school teacher. I was raised by 2 of them, so I should know. Alrighty. Well, we're going to go ahead and jump into our panel discussion here. And it is my honor to introduce our panelists here today. We are joined by Christy Dre. Christy works in a traditionally male-dominated field. Christy Dre is a manager of substation construction and maintenance at SMUD and is breaking barriers and setting new standards. In her 22 years at SMUD, Christy was recently recognized for her pioneering efforts promoting gender diversity and equality within the utility industry. She won a Women Who Spark Diversity and Inclusion Award. It's a testament to her dedication to transforming workforce dynamics within a traditionally male-dominated field. Through her leadership, Christy has reshaped SMUD's approach to workforce diversity and set new benchmarks for inclusive practices in the utility sector. Thank you, Christy. We're also joined by Orville Thomas, who serves as the CEO of the California Mobility Center, although I think a new name is underway.
A man-to-man dominated industry, right?
In his role, he works with stakeholders to accelerate clean energy, power, and zero-emission technology development as the CMC builds out 25 acres of research, development, and manufacturing space in Sacramento, California. Prior to the CMC, Orville serves as the State Policy Director for CalSTART, Government Relations Director for Lion Electric, and Government Affairs Director for the California Immigrant Policy Center. He has also worked on California's high-speed rail project while working for the administration of Governor Jerry Brown. Orville has a master's in public policy from UC Berkeley's Goldman School of Policy and a Bachelor of Arts degree in radio and TV communications from San Francisco State University. Thanks, Orville. We're also joined by Tom Clark, who is a program manager over workforce development at Rivian. His automotive journey with Rivian evolved after he became a technician at Rivian, driven by a passion for technical education that creates genuine growth opportunities. Tom has designed training programs that emphasize critical thinking skills, helping technicians discover their own unique pathways in the rapidly evolving high voltage sector. This approach stems from his own experience seeing quality technical education open doors to diverse and fulfilling career possibilities. Thank you, Tom. And finally, here we are also joined by Chris Tillery, who Liz briefly introduced earlier. Chris is a graduate of the Sacramento Electrical Apprenticeship Program and worked in various areas of the electrical industry before joining the staff at the Apprenticeship Training Center in 2019. Chris instructed the 5th year of the apprenticeship program, trainee classes, and journeyman classes until 2022. He then took over as training director of the apprenticeship program, where he now manages the day-to-day operations of the school. Thank you, Chris. Alrighty, wanted to give a quick background on folks before I tee it up with our first question here. And I know I briefly introduced everyone, but I'm wondering if I can trouble them to answer our first question. And we'll go in order here, although I might switch it around on you all in the future. So starting with you, Orville, if you could please provide an overview of your organization and business, including your role and the main services or products you provide.
Everyone here on this one? Okay. Orville Thomas, CEO, and thank you for alluding to the name. We are going to change the name from California Mobility Center to Cal Epic, mostly because I don't want to get asked what I know about wheelchairs and other types of mobility options. So Cal Epic stands for California Energy, Power, and Innovation Collaborative. And I always thought of mobility as e-mobility. But what we work on and what we need to start thinking about, as we've been hearing, is so much more than that. You know, how do these energy systems and power systems kind of accelerate and develop in California so that we can meet our state's goals of being completely net zero carbon in 2045? What we do and what I do is, as a executive director, CEO of a nonprofit, is a little bit of everything. A lot of the times going around and talking to partners and potential partners about what we can do together to accelerate and I think start more deeply programs that bring economic opportunities to our region that focus on clean energy and clean transportation technology. And so it's been great to work with Valley Vision and Sierra College to think about what we can do to go more upstream with workforce development, how we could go into high schools and middle schools and start teaching students at that age and families about the job opportunities that are going to be coming to our region with manufacturing.
All right, Christy Dre. So been at SMUD for 22 years, quite the journey. One of the most interesting things I find about SMUD is the diversity in the job positions that we have. I always tell folks, you think of the position, we probably have it within the organization. Now, while I manage our substation construction and maintenance team, which is a team of about 60 high voltage electricians, we have 15 apprenticeship programs at SMUD, and we have 8 of them that are federally certified, and then a handful of others that are state certified as well. So we have linemen, substation high voltage electricians, cable splicer electricians, electechs, telecom technicians. We have meter techs. We have the designers and engineers that support those systems. And then additionally, as part of our Upper American River project for our power generation sites, we have the hydro plant mechanics and operators, electechs, electricians for those sites as well. So really excited to talk about our apprenticeship programs because we're proud of our homegrown programs that we have, but then also talking about the partnerships that we can make with those in the community to better strengthen the candidate pool coming into these programs. How many of you are SMUD customers? All right, so you're pretty familiar with the services we provide, so electric services, and our goal is by 2030 to be zero carbon generation for all of our energy sources. So happy to be here.
Thank you, Christy. Tom?
Yeah, thanks. So I certainly can't speak for all of Rivian and what Rivian needs. My department is specifically for service training and service development. And within this department, we've kind of come to the realization that there's no way we can supply the amount of technicians or train the amount of technicians that we need within the industry to just for our current R1 base and our future upcoming vehicles. There's no way we can meet that demand. So the way we've gone about this is really opening up the doors to entry-level technicians and bringing in people that maybe don't have the amount of experience that would have been required previously, and training them in-house. And I brought some technical trades technicians along with me today that can speak to their experience thus far. So that's really where we're at, and we have a huge demand for technicians across the entire world, really, eventually. And in order to meet that demand, we've really kind of opened up the doors, and we want to train in-house and grow our technician base within our own company. That's really where we're at.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chris?
Okay, hi. Can you hear me? Yeah. So my name is Chris Tillery. I'm the training director for the Sacramento Electrical Training Center. We are not just a training center, though. We are an apprenticeship. We are the union apprenticeship in the greater Sacramento and far north area, basically. We cover 17 counties from greater Sacramento up through Redding, Chico areas, all in the northern part of the state as well. We are the apprenticeship for the IBEW, the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 340. We currently have 450 students in our program. We're one of the larger programs in the state. And, I use the term student a little lightly there. These aren't just students. That's a big differentiator between our union electrical apprenticeship which is a nonprofit 501c3 and a for-profit trade school. These aren't just students; these are employees. That's a huge distinction with an apprenticeship, is that when we bring our students into the program, we give them a career first. Their first day on the job, their first day in the program is on the job, and then they get their free schooling along with that throughout their 5-year apprenticeship program. We give them a $400 set of tools their first day. We pay for their tuition, their lab fees, their textbooks, everything throughout the apprenticeship, and they earn they start on their journey to a very high paying career, where when they graduate from the 5-year program, they're making over $100,000 a year working 40 hours a week. So that's what our program brings to the not only high voltage, but also lower voltage for inside wiremen jobs.
Thank you. And I wanted to say I appreciated Larry calling out IBEW in his presentation earlier. Valley Vision has been great to work with Chris. IBEW and Chris as well has been a great partner, especially implementing lots of out-of-the-box new ideas and recommendations that we shared over the past couple of years. And I'll just briefly plug that we're actually interviewing Chris later this month for our newsletter, as they're building a separate building as part of their training center. So I'll reverse the order now and start with you, Chris, for this second question here. How does the labor market data presented align with your organization's experience in the electrical sector? Were there surprises or discrepancies? And I know Liz called some of this out, that some of the training centers, some of those programs weren't included in the labor market data. So curious to hear your take.
Yeah. So, when speaking specifically to high voltage jobs, I can definitely see a correlation with our apprenticeship and the growth that was shown in the labor market data. While our job would not technically be considered a high voltage job, we probably didn't show up in any of her studies because we are an inside wireman program. So we would technically be called it depends who you ask. We might call ourselves medium voltage, but if you actually are an electrician, medium voltage is actually still higher than 600 volts. So a real high voltage, like lineman electrician, would call us low voltage guys. And we would say that's the sound and communication guys that are under 50 volts. So, but anyways, just for the sake of today, we do work on over 600 volts. As Ebony said, she's defining high voltage as over 600 volts. We don't typically work on that in AC voltage, but we do in DC voltage in the terms of photovoltaic or solar, right? So there is a lot of solar. A lot of solar that we've done and a lot of solar coming up. I mean, for us specifically, over the last few years, we've completed a couple really large solar projects, the Rancho Seco project and the Slough House solar project, where we installed over 750 megawatts of solar. Coming up over the next year, we've got over a gigawatt of solar that we're installing over some of our next projects coming up. So the growth in what we would call our high voltage area of our apprenticeship, solar, definitely lines up with what she's saying there. You know, she specified 416 job postings over the course of that year. The way that our apprenticeship program works, I only have one job posting. So it's a little different because we hire year round. I have one posting. Doesn't mean I only hire one person. During that same year that she said there was 416 job postings, I hired 150 new apprentice electricians, and I hire roughly 150-ish per year. So, and you know, we're at about 450 now, but as they graduate, we bring on new ones. So, you know, we are definitely seeing the same trend in that area. And you know, we teach not only the photovoltaic installations, but also another key component of these installations is battery storage as well. And we also teach the ESAM TAC battery storage and microgrid technology certification to our students. In addition to, as Larry mentioned, the EVITP, Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Training Program. We also teach that and certify all of our apprentices to do electric vehicle charging system installations through the EVITP certification. So lastly, I'll just touch real quick on the trade schools that Caitlin mentioned or Liz mentioned earlier. That's not a requirement. You know, it's not a requirement to go to one of these for-profit trade schools to get into our apprenticeship. You don't need any past experience to get into our apprenticeship. Some of our best electricians came from bagging groceries, you know, and we teach them what they need. It's not to say that if somebody goes and pays $15,000, $20,000 to one of these for-profit trade schools that it's a complete waste. Sure, those skills are going to carry over into our training, but there's a huge difference between, you know, going and spending $20,000 to get schooling with no on-the-job component of it, or coming and getting free training and on the job experience and a paid career with us. So, you know, I'll never tell someone they shouldn't go to a trade school. Just if you have candidates that are looking to get into our field, just know it's not a requirement. It won't hurt though.
Thank you.
Yep.
Tom, I'll pose that to you next.
Yeah. So I think we can start this off just like Chris did, and the fact that we are technically not high voltage either. If we go by Ebony's definition, we're not over 600 volts. And I will say within our market, specific to service, that's not to say we don't have high voltage jobs. So we do have our charging stations that do require high voltage knowledge. Okay, but specific to service as well, our training programs are also paid, so we hire somebody on just at the same time. So we will have a single listing for each location across the country, and that stays active all of the time. We hire 15. We're looking for around 15 people every 2 months for each of our locations. We have a 10-week rotation that the program lasts. So that's putting us on track for something like 150 people per year for the first year that we're running this program, our fast track program. So the numbers they line up. Like we need a lot of people, and as I mentioned previously, like we've gone down this route because of the amount of people that we need to bring in, and every one of our positions is paid. We hire them on as soon as they start the program with us. So I wouldn't say there's any surprises or discrepancies specific to the service side of Rivian either. That is only with the numbers I had mentioned are only with our program. We are also having 3 new locations, service center locations that are opening up within the Bay Area and Sacramento. So that the number is going to ever grow. It's not going anywhere as the number of vehicles that we have on the road increases as well.
Thank you. Christy?
So no surprises when I saw the data. It was actually kind of humbling because some of those job postings came from my team. So like, yes, that aligns. And we are high voltage. So our high voltage electricians work up to 230,000 volts with our transmission substations. And then we could be working down 120, 240 or 480 volt panels within our control houses for our substations. So I found the research to be very accurate for our high voltage careers within SMUD. Job posting wise, very similar. You'll see one posting, and we're going to be using that to create an eligibility list. We just closed our posting for the high voltage electrician and cable splicer electrician apprenticeship programs, and that will be for a 2-year eligibility list. As far as the qualifications go, she was spot on. Minimum qualifications would be a high school diploma and basic hand tool use. We'll have a written examination for many of our high voltage careers, and that would be for basic algebra and trigonometry. It's making sure that they have the skill set to be able to be successful in our night school programs, which are after hours, unpaid, 1 night a week for a 4-year apprenticeship program. They'll go through AC theory, DC theory, 3-phase, motors, you name it, print reading, etc., to get them through the apprenticeship program. As far as wages go, our high voltage electrician apprentice starts out at $44.70 an hour, and then tops out as a journeyman at $68.26 an hour. That's for this year. We are IBW 1245, so it is union negotiated wages, and they're going into their negotiations this year. So we'll see what the wages will be for the next contract. Line workers top out at $79.70 an hour, so that's $165,000 a year, and then that's not to mention their overtime, which would be paid at a double time rate. So really good careers to get into. As far as our candidates that are coming in, it is a very competitive process. So I mentioned the written examination that would get you on the eligibility list. Then we have a practical examination where we are testing those minimum qualifications. So basic hand tool use, can you follow instructions, working safely? Do you have the physical capabilities to be able to perform these physically demanding job tasks in the varying environments? And we do find that those folks who come out of whether it be a local 340, Northwest Lineman College, already having some experience with solar installations, working with electric vehicles, those candidates have really great transferable skills that we see to be very competitive in our hiring processes. Additionally, those candidates who completed classes, electrical classes through the junior colleges and are completing those labs and demonstrating print reading and troubleshooting are also very competitive candidates. So we love to see that. For our telecom tech apprenticeship program, they support all of our high voltage systems and the SCADA systems that can remotely operate our high voltage breakers and switches. Those candidates actually have to complete an associate's degree in electronics. So that's where really great partnership with the community college for that apprenticeship program.
Thank you. Orville?
Wow, that was great.
You want to come work for SMED?
Yeah, I do. It's interesting, and I think the presentation was aligned obviously with what these three are going through, and I love that our program is like a feeder to all three of these because it does show the need to meet the community where they are. And you know what we try to do at Cal Epic, which is going to take me a little bit longer to get used to, is try to find a pathway with different off ramps for either line workers or electricians or the Rivian training or Siemens or what's available in our area. Also understanding that California is essentially going through the electrification of everything, whether it's residential, whether it's commercial, whether it's the transportation sector, whether it's creating a reliable and resilient grid with battery backup. And what we try to make sure is that we have these partnerships in place where those that are coming to us maybe for career realignment, coming out of the justice system, coming out of being a veteran and looking for their next career, is that we want to provide what we call the introduction to jobs and green careers. And we do a 3-day class that kind of goes over everything. And then from there, you could start taking different programs, whether it's electric vehicle charger training for maintenance. Now we have the Rivian program that we're happy to partner with Tom on. We also have something that is as simple as forklift certification. so that we could get one more certification under their tool belt to provide them with job opportunities. And so we see this, and I think when I was looking at that data, depending on how high voltage is classified, and what we're hearing is it's classified in different ways with different employers, is that we need to prepare as a region, and probably from the Bay Area all through Northern California and going up to Lake Tahoe, for the introduction of batteries. And that's where we're starting to see more of these manufacturing footprints starting to hold. There's $34 million potentially from California Energy Commission grants coming into the region for battery manufacturing. I just put a $28 million grant in to create a battery pilot line. We have several companies in the Bay Area now looking at what batteries are going to be the next type of generations for the utilities, right? It's not just going to be lithium ion, it's going to be sodium ion, it's going to be all these different chemistries. And so what I think our role is, and when I was looking at that research, is that might be the point in time right now, but we know that there's going to be a huge jump. And how do we prepare our community, whether it's working with Sierra College or the high schools or the adult ed kind of providers, to make sure that there are these trainings in place so that we can get them into the pre-apprentice apprenticeship programs, into the line schools, into the training programs with a manufacturer. And that way we have no slowdown for the manufacturing opportunities and the job opportunities because they can't find people.
Thank you. And before we dive into our next question, I'll say for folks in the audience here, folks online, we'll have some time for audience Q&A. So kind of think about some of these responses to these questions, or for folks online, feel free to drop in the chat. And maybe I could bug our team to stop sharing and maybe spotlight our panelists here as well. Look at folks' lovely faces. For our next question, I'll open this up and folks can feel free to kind of popcorn in as you like. Kind of diving into some of what we've touched on in that previous question, what are some of the in-demand occupations and skills within your organization related to these electrical positions, and which of those are the most challenging to fill? So I'll leave it up to you all.
Well, everybody's looking over at me, so I'll start.
Natural leader. I like it.
All right. First off, I'm going to go ahead and submit my resume to SMUD after this meeting. No, I am aware of the, with the electrical industry, as the voltage goes up, so does the pay. The guys that are working on the telephone wires, they make less than us, and oh yeah, the linemen make more than us. But we do get a lot of people that go that way. I know a lot of people that have transitioned from us over to SMUD, but SMUD's a great partner, and we're always happy to be working with them. So no hard feelings when you steal my apprentices.
Thank you.
As far as the question goes, so it's a unique question for me because I only have one occupation, right? So which occupation is hardest to fill? I mean, my occupation is inside wireman. I don't really have a problem filling that. I do try to get the word out as much as I can through outreach and recruitment efforts. What we try to do though is make well-rounded electricians. That's kind of the thing whenever I'm talking with people about these emerging technologies, different things coming up on the horizon. Well, are you going to be able to get your guys trained to be able to do this new technology? Yeah, absolutely. The skills that for the in-demand occupations that we teach at the apprenticeship program, it's all based on the building blocks of a good foundation of being an electrician, which is what our a cornerstone of our training is. We through their 5-year apprenticeship program, our apprentices work a minimum of 8,000 hours on the job, learning under a certified journeyman electrician. They complete 1,000 hours in school with us, and that starts all the way from the building blocks of electrical theory through more advanced topics, working through transformers, motors, motor controls, variable frequency drives, building automation, advanced lighting controls, electric vehicles, solar, battery storage, all that kind of stuff. So we create well-rounded electricians, and our outlook on skills required for these different occupations or different technologies is that our electricians can do any of it. It doesn't take much to just add a little cherry on top to what they already know to get them up to speed, because they have such a good understanding of how electricity works and how electrical work is performed. I don't know if I answered that very good.
No, I appreciate the perspective.
Yeah, I'll take the next stab at it here. So I think within the service industry, we have to remember, like, the people that we're bringing in are automotive technicians first. The high voltage side of it is it's an aspect. It's something they need to be aware of, and that's really what we're looking for, is the high voltage safety awareness to be an automotive technician within a manufacturer such as Rivian. But that's the difference between working as a technician for a manufacturer is it isn't the same expectations as it is with a traditional dealership, right? We have different expectations. We need technicians that come in that have the soft skills, that have the ability to speak to customers. We put our technicians on the road in a mobile service van to go to a customer's house, so we need them to show up and be presentable and be able to convey the information and talk about what they're doing and what they're repairing. Also have every bit of the automotive technician's skills as well. They need to be good at the job as well as all of these other things, right? So it's kind of shifted. It's not somebody that you put in a garage in the corner over there and tell them to fix cars all day anymore. Like, that's just not what the job is. We really need somebody that has the social awareness and the soft skills and can continue to develop and has the aptitude to learn more as well. We bring people in early to our early level technician training programs because we think that they have the aptitude to grow with the company. We're growing at such a rapid pace that we fully expect the Riv 1s, which is our entry level, we bring them in now, and within 3, 4, 5 years, they will be leading the next service centers. They will be moving on to positions in engineering technician roles, or moving on to who knows, right? Our next sodium ion battery technology, right? Like, there's no way for us to determine where they're going to end up. It's just kind of the nature of the beast. Yeah.
I think at SMUD, our biggest challenge would be hiring at that journey level, whether it be for a high voltage electrician, a cable splicer electrician, a telecom tech, or a line worker. It really is hard finding folks that have that journey level, high voltage utility experience. We have brought folks in at the advanced apprentice level. We've experienced some challenges with work ethic, bringing folks in at advanced apprentice. We have not had a problem finding enough candidates interested in our apprenticeship. We capped it at 400 applicants, and then we had 185 candidates who passed the written exam and then came out to our practical. We're now in the process of screening that through and going through interviews, and we had like 15 candidates, I would say, out of the 185 that really rose to the top. And it's not that they had specific electrical experience. We're really looking for that work ethic, someone that we can mold, someone that already has some experience in troubleshooting, all of these basic level transferable skills that we can build on. Now, in looking at the practical exam, I would love to see more qualified candidates come through, and we're testing for basic skills. You'd be surprised how many candidates don't know how to use a drill or how to measure properly, right? So we're weeding candidates out through that process. We also have candidates that come through and don't even know what a high voltage electrician does. And so in hearing from the presentations earlier and also with the market study, I feel like there is an opportunity to really provide more education on the different occupations that we have. I think oftentimes when people think of SMUD, they see line workers and think that's what we hire is line workers. There's so many other trades, especially within high voltage, than just a line worker. So I think that's an opportunity for us to partner with other organizations to provide more education on the different trades. We hosted a Women in Skilled Trades Day event 2 years ago, and it was really informational. It was open to everybody, not just women, but we were really trying to create a safe space for folks to come out and learn about the different trades, get hands-on doing wiring, operating a hot stick, using a ladder, going down in a manhole, using hand tools. So I think more of that type of outreach can really let folks know what skills they need to build on so they can be more competitive in our hiring process.
Thanks, Christy. I'll just add, I think Liz here was actually at that day and had the
humble.
working outside in the heavy duty uniform. Absolutely. Orville?
I guess I'll talk about it just from a broader transportation perspective about what we see in demand. And it was brought up earlier, the lack of sufficient people to maintain EV chargers is something that is a long-term problem for the state, long-term problem for our communities. A story that I heard is that someone was trying to fill up their electric vehicle at a charging station in the North Coast. And they saw a worker, and this person was like, "Hey, didn't I see you also in Fresno?" And the person said, "Yeah, I'm the one that does all the way up and down." And so I think that is a testament to the lack of qualified maintenance techs when it comes to electric vehicle charging stations. And if you're starting a business for anyone online, it's probably something you want to look into because how much money the state and previously the federal government were putting into it. So California, I think, is putting at least 500 million over the next 5 years into some kind of infrastructure for zero emission vehicles, whether it's hydrogen fueling stations or battery electric. Something else that I think is going to be there and what we discuss as like an industry is battery manufacturing. Do we have people that have various education can go into different stages of the battery manufacturing pipeline, whether it's the people designing a battery manufacturing system, probably similar to people designing a substation that might have more of the 4-year degree college and post grad experience to those that are coming right out of high school that would be operating the battery manufacturing pilot line or battery manufacturing line. And then we start getting into the job opportunities. When we went and spoke with Tesla, they said that they couldn't get enough people for their battery facility in Reno. And so they were busing people up from Las Vegas or flying people in from the East Coast, and that their hiring at their Lathrop Center for their Powerwall was also suffering because they couldn't find qualified technicians. So some of the things that we try to do is figure out what is the minimum kind of background that they need, and how do we prepare them for that first day so that they can go in with a program like Rivian's or like Christie's or like Chris's and say, well, I have a strong foundation, and now I'm really ready to learn and an understanding of what that's going to be. And I think that's what's great of working with Sierra College too, is we know that there's a strong foundation here. And so how do we point people to that, right? How do we say, if you're interested in this, go take a semester with Amy and Roy. And that from there can lead you into a job at Bosch. Or if you're interested in this, what are other colleges providing? And that can give you fundamental kind of skills, knowing that there's a job on the other side of that time duration.
Thank you. Super interesting. Try to keep an eye on time here because we will allow some time for audience Q&A. But I think I'll just ask sort of one last question from the Valley Vision end, question 5 here. Is there anything else that education and training partners should know to ensure that these individuals are prepared to obtain jobs with your organizations? Any overarching, anything we haven't covered yet, something that folks should know about?
I kind of wanted to touch on question 4 a little bit, just hearing the trend with electric vehicles and solar and what the impact is on the utility industry, because you need to provide power for those EV chargers, right? And so you are really putting a demand on the grid. And that is something that electric utilities are talking about and are concerned about. And how do we meet that demand? So when you're looking at a substation transformer, you're talking about a $500,000 to $1 million asset with a 5-year lead time. And you look at the resources needed to be able to change out that equipment. As far as headcount goes and ratio, I'm at a 1-to-1 ratio right now, apprentice to journeyman. So that's one of the challenges that we're facing within the utility industry to be able to meet this demand. So we are, in order to meet the demand, going to be reliant upon contract agencies to help us in that. And while we are still funding the pipeline for apprentices, so I do see the overall labor growth happening within the utility space. But if the demand is going to come to fruition like we're hearing, it's going to be challenging for the electric utilities to keep up with that.
Thanks, Christy. And for our audience, we gave our panelists some different topics to touch on. So maybe I'll give the other three here the option to either touch on and potential anticipated hiring or skill needs changing due to some of these market dynamics, policy shifts, advances in automation or tech, or as I mentioned before, any other overarching education and training partner advice. I'll open the floor to those two questions for our other three panelists, and then we'll have a few minutes for audience Q&A.
Yeah, I'll step in here and I can talk about, just anything for education or training partners to know. Because if I go into the other one, I'm kind of going to be redundant. I'm just going to be talking about our green energy initiative training classes that we offer. So something for education and training providers, candidates looking for a position with us. I guess just to know what the minimum requirements are. A degree is not required. We require our candidates to be 18 years old, have a valid driver's license, a high school diploma or equivalent, and a C or better in high school algebra. Now, that last point, that's usually the largest barrier that we see is obtaining valid transcripts with a C or better in high school algebra. So if you've got a candidate that is still in high school, then the biggest advice is make sure they're doing their math. It's not that we don't have, there's not ways around that. They can take a semester at a college. They can actually take an online class that we offer through our national JTC. They have to pay for it. It's about $180, but they can take that class to meet those requirements as well. But those are our basic requirements. And then the biggest piece of advice I always tell to people that are looking to get into our apprenticeship is it's not going to happen overnight, right? This isn't getting a job at McDonald's where you can go in and interview and get hired the next day because they got a shift for you. It can take a while. It can take a year. It took me 2 years to get in. Times were a little slower, but basically my biggest advice to anybody is just be patient. Don't get too antsy to get right in. Go get a job as an electrician working on houses for a smaller company. Get some experience, but just get your application in with us first and get in the pipeline. It might take a while, but if you got to wait 2 years to have a career for the rest of your life, it's kind of worth it.
Thank you.
I think from my perspective, we are in the middle of a revolution when it comes to a lot of this technology, and 2 years can be the difference between leapfrogging technologies and completely different types of things that we get to work on. It's fun, as Christy was talking about substations. In my head, I'm thinking about virtual power plants and how it'll have to be combining, vehicle to grid technology with chargers and electric vehicles. So as the grid is being strained, you can power your own house or your own business or your own college and allow a utility to kind of skip you and get energy to where it's needed. And so this is something that you can hop on depending on where you are in your, kind of career or your kind of desires to work and be part of something big. We see, especially in California, we've kind of insulated as much as possible from changing headwinds at the federal level when it comes to investments in energy technology. So we know that there will be investments here. We know that there will be jobs created because of those investments. And so, you have 3 very good candidates for job opportunities for organizations. If you're interested in it, jump in. It's going to be fun.
Thank you.
Yeah. I don't know that I don't know that I have anything to add beyond what's already been said, really. I mean, the trend for us right now, I think 5 years ago we went from 2,100 employees to where we currently stand over a 5-year period of time. This is the company as a whole. We're at 12,000 employees. So the trend line for our employment is insane, and it's ever growing, right? And as we go from our R1 vehicle, our larger flagship SUV and truck, to a mass market vehicle, which is our R2 platform. This is our midsize that's the vehicle we plan to kind of hit a home run with. Like it's going to be, the growth is going to be exponential. It's crazy how many more people we need, and how many more vehicles we're going to try to put on the road, just to support that.
Thank you. We have one Valley Vision Rivian driver, and I've been harassing him since this advisory. I'm like, look, it's your make your vehicle. Very cool. Well, I know we have one question coming in from the chat online, and then I want to open up the floor, if this cord will let me, for our in-person folks. Liz, can I trouble you to share our online question? And thank you for our cord help over there.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you. So Rick Larkey on Zoom asked, in addition to increased demand of solar or vehicle chargers, what is the status of the City of Sacramento's initiative to go all electric by 2035? I feel like this one's directed to Christy.
Well, it would really, I'm not sure about the all electric by 2035. I mean, SMUD's goal is 2030 zero carbon for our power generation and emissions. As far as all electric, SMUD's really, we're definitely in support of that. It's increased revenue for SMUD, right? But we are a nonprofit community owned public utility. So I'm not sure I have any additional other information to add. I know that there's, regulations for new home builds to be all electric, and we're in support of that. And, in addition, it's, more load on the grid as well. So I'm not sure I really have anything else to add on that other than, if there's anything else from the EV side for electrification.
More the merrier. On the EV side, the city's fleets are still going to be part of the advanced clean fleet regulation. So as private industry doesn't have to meet those, municipal fleets still do. And I think that means that they've already started their procurement for one-for-ones.
And there's challenges with the larger utility vehicles and all electric, and being able to support that, especially if we're in storm mode and it's 24/7 to get the lights back on, right? We need to make sure that, our vehicles can still run. So we are changing out our fleet, like all smaller utility vehicles that we're purchasing are all electric. You're gonna see a lot more SMUD Ford Lightning vehicles out on the road than you have before. So more of that to come.
Thank you. I see a hand raised in the back. Maybe I can act like a little microphone fairy and transport this over to you.
Thank you. Roy Ingram from Sierra College here, mechatronics. Also, just a connection with SMUD. Frankie McDermott also was my hiring manager when I started at NEC at 19. So it's sort of fun full circle thing there. But the question about the apprenticeship requirements to have an associate's degree, is there a list of qualified associate's degrees, or do they have to be in electronics, mechatronics? I know Sac City, American Urban and Sierra were listed up there on some of the options, but does SMUD have like numbers on where those students are coming from as they apply for those apprenticeships?
Yeah, so that would be specific for our telecom technician apprenticeship program, and that would be an associate degree in electronics. And they do have the courses listed within the apprentice agreement. So electronics technology 300, 301, 306, 310. I believe it's ARC has the courses. I'm not sure what the Sierra College courses, but it is prescribed on the specific courses, and it's about 109 units that would be required. Yeah. That's very unique to the telecom tech apprenticeship program. The other apprenticeship programs don't have that. It's going to be all in-house delivered after hours night school programs, in addition to the on-the-job training. And then every 6 months for all the apprenticeship programs, we have step tests. So it'll be both a written and a practical. And then at the end of the 4 years, the telecom tech is a 3-year apprenticeship. Cable Splicer is 4.5. The rest of them are 4 years. And at the end will be a comprehensive journeyman examination. You're welcome.
One more question here as well.
Thank you so much. Can everybody hear me? Cool. So this is a question for everybody. Besides the money, how does your organization care and motivate employees or students, and how do you promote their own development, right? The only reason why I bring this up is because the job that we do can be pretty demanding physically. You're learning a lot every day. Most people could get, discouraged based on the conditions that they're working in. So I know I can speak for Rivian. I've had a couple of internships with them. I know they care about their people, and you feel like you belong to the bigger picture. So I just wanted to hear from you guys' words. How does your organization promote that for your employees and students?
I'll jump in first. SMUD is huge on community, so there's a lot of different community events that we participate in and encourage our SMUD employees to be the face of and engage in. A lot of family events. We also have multiple employee resource groups that employees from any part of the organization can be a part of. We also have our annual giving campaign where employees from the different work groups are encouraged to give back through different events that we have to local nonprofits. And then in addition, I think being a part of the IBW, that's a really strong brotherhood of electrical workers where they do band together and support each other. And there's regular union events and meetings that employees go to as well. And then we also have our employee assistance program that we offer as a benefit to employees to make sure that whatever they may be going through in their life, whether it be, mental health, financial, divorce, et cetera, something in their family, there's an employee assistance program to make sure our employees have those resources to help them in those times.
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I can just touch on that as well. It's going to be very similar because we're IBEW as well. I mean, the first thing to start with there is that being IBEW, being union, our workers work under a collective bargaining agreement that is collectively bargained between the employer and the labor side. So right off the bat, your working conditions are going to be a lot better. So, that alleviates some of the difficulties of being on a job site, but it's still a hard job and there's struggles. But being in the union, yes, we have all kinds of union events, family events, the meetings. It's a brotherhood, a sisterhood. For us, the thing that's really successful is all of the organizations that we have, and we really try to get all of our apprentices involved in it. We have the women's committee that is a mentorship and fellowship group for the women in our trades. We have EWMC, which is the Electrical Workers Minority Caucus. We have other Renew, which is for new electrical workers. So that's a real good mentorship program for the new workers. We have a veterans program. We have I'm the president of the sportsman's club. If somebody, or jiu-jitsu club, softball team, we've got so many different groups, as well as a employee assistance or a member assistance program that offers lots of assistance as needed. So
Thank you so much.
Mhm.
All right, I see one more hand. You got a minute.
Good one.
Can you handle the challenge?
So thinking about the talent pipeline for high voltage careers, I wanted to ask, thinking back to your high school career and then what your current associations with high voltage are, if you could design one class for, let's say, 9th through 12th graders, so high school level, like what would that look like and how would it prepare students for future careers in high voltage?
What a good question. I love that.
Great. And I'm so happy I get to listen to the answers because Amy and I and Tom are trying to figure out what that class is supposed to look like. We were chosen to have a mobile classroom. So we are going to be going into the 8-county region and working with middle school students and high school students to get them ready. But, this is educational now, so please do tell.
So it is pretty cool. I have a 16-year-old and a 19-year-old. So I got to see their progression and then also what their interests are in the trades. And my 19-year-old has no interest whatsoever. He's more so in computers and also doesn't know how to use basic hand tools, right? So this course that you'd be describing, I think, wouldn't really be focused specifically on one trade per se, but more so the diversity and understanding how to use hand tools, work ethic, working in different environments, how to read prints, how to do troubleshooting, maybe basic electrical circuits, just enough to really give them a strong foundation and then have them get some hands-on experience or job shadowing with these different occupations so they can really see what piques their interest.
Completely agree. Yeah, the CTE programs as they stand covering various trades are perfect. It doesn't need to be specifically for electrical because we're going to teach you that.
Yeah.
We need the basic job site type skills and soft skills.
I would say job shadowing is a huge part of it too, because we want people that want to be with us, right? So if they can get some experience, some exposure to what it's going to be like in their everyday life before they come to us, that's a huge benefit.
Thank you so much. And I also want to say a very sincere thank you to our panelists, for taking the time out of their day to come up here to Rockland today. They've also been on several calls with our team to prepare for this meeting, and your time is extremely valuable, so we appreciate you coming here to spend it with us. With that, I will let you maybe find your way back to your seats, but we'll close out just here in a second. As we close out, I also want to thank folks tuning in online, utilizing some of this information to inform coursework and training programs. And I'll just share one last slide here from our team. Want to go ahead and plug we have a post-event survey. And like you all, okay, we go to a lot of events, we do a lot of surveys, but these are actually really helpful and important for our team. I guarantee each member of our workforce team will read every single survey response that we get. So I may gently bully our folks in the audience right now to pull out your phones and scan that really cute QR code you see up on the screen. And for our folks on Zoom, we are dropping it in the chat as well. But with that in mind, I just really appreciate you all taking the time to join us today, and wish you a wonderful rest of your week here. And for folks here in person, we have a Rivian vehicle experience scheduled just after this, where you'll hear a little bit more from Tom and his wonderful team. So appreciate you all joining us today and look forward to a little Rivian tour for folks in person. Thank you.